how does a heavy metal frontman scream his deepest, darkest secrets to thousands of adoring fans every single night, but keep his true identity completely hidden from his wife for 14 years? The cameras flashed, the crowd froze. And just like that, the music world had a new, heartbreaking obsession. Caleb Shomo's marriage ends after a life-changing revelation.
Welcome to Starscope Report. Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
We are so glad you're here with us for today's deep dive. Our mission today is complex, and we're going to look at it from every single angle.
Yeah, every angle.
Exactly. We're unpacking the end of Beartooth frontman Caleb Shomo's 14-year marriage. We're exploring this intense, closely guarded secret he carried for decades, and we're looking at the immense emotional collateral damage of, finally deciding to live your truth.
It is so easy to look at a 14-year relationship suddenly imploding and wonder, how does something like that happen so fast? Right, it feels completely instantaneous to the public.
It does, but when you look at the timeline, according to sources like Page 6 and Reality T, you realize it wasn't fast at all. On May 23, 2026, 33-year-old Caleb Shomo, the explosive frontman of the Metalcore band Beartooth, and formerly of Attack, shocked his followers.
Hundreds of thousands of them.
Yeah, a massive audience. He posted a statement coming out as a, quote, proudly gay man.
Which is huge.
Huge. And then less than 2 months later, on July 13th, Caleb and his wife, actress Fleur Shomo, jointly filed for divorce in Los Angeles Superior Court. And the documents listed their official date of separation as March 27th.
And, the paradox of his life leading up to that March separation is what really stands out to me. Think about the mechanics of being a frontman in heavy metal.
Right.
Your entire job description is public vulnerability. You stand on a massive festival stage and you just scream your absolute lungs out. You physically exhaust yourself, offering up your soul to the crowd.
Leaving it all on the stage.
Exactly. But then the second the stage lights go down and the tour bus doors close, you are sitting in complete agonizing isolation.
It's hard to even fathom that kind of disconnect.
The cognitive load required to maintain that public persona while privately dismantling a 14-year partnership is just, it's staggering.
Wait, I'm struggling to understand this, and I think a lot of people listening might be too. He's the frontman of a massive metal band.
Yeah.
That entire culture implies rebellion, living authentically, breaking the rules, pushing back against the mainstream. How is he so trapped in a world that supposedly celebrates misfits?
Well, it is a great question, because we naturally assume counterculture spaces are inherently progressive.
Right.
But that wasn't the reality of his specific environment.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remember the context of the mid-2000s Christian metalcore scene. You were allowed to scream about your demons, but there were strict boundaries on what those demons could actually be.
Oh, I see.
You could be angry, you could be anxious, but you could not be gay.
That brings up a better way to look at his marriage, I think. People looking at the Instagram announcement saw a sudden collapse. But really, a 14-year marriage with a hidden core identity is, it's like a load-bearing wall built on a faulty foundation.
Oh, that's a really good analogy.
Right, because when you finally realize the foundation is cracked, you can't just patch it. You have to tear the whole house down to fix it.
And when you tear down a house, it is inevitably going to damage the people inside.
Exactly, even if there was no malicious intent.
You are navigating the grief of losing your marriage while simultaneously navigating the public's reaction to your sexuality. It's this incredibly heavy, double-edged sword of liberation and loss.
And if you think the timeline of the divorce is complex, wait until you hear the traumatizing event he was forced to witness as a teenager that kept him locked in that foundation for over a decade.
Oh, man, yeah. If you're captivated by these incredible music industry twists, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories coming up in this deep dive.
So, to understand the why behind the 14-year secret, we have to look at the environment that built that faulty foundation in the first place. Pulling from his incredibly candid interview on the Disrespectfully podcast, as well as coverage from Loudwire, we get a really clear picture of his youth.
Which was intense.
Very. He was raised in Ohio, the son and grandson of pastors. His mother was a nurse from a religious family who played in a church band.
Right.
He entered the mid-2000s metal scene at just 14 years old. And like we touched on, this scene, adjacent to bands like Under Oath, was heavily intertwined with evangelical Christianity.
And that creates a fascinating, albeit destructive, psychological trap for a teenager.
How so?
Well, For youth in strict religious environments, aggressive music was often the only socially sanctioned outlet for negative emotions. It was a refuge, but it was also a cage. He shared this vivid memory that illustrates how early the suppression started. He was 6 or 7 years old at a department store with his mom and older brother. They were picking out cheap rings. His brother picked a standard guy's ring, but Caleb gravitated toward a silver and gold girl's ring with a diamond.
Oh, wow.
He loved it. But the very next day, on the school bus, he was so mercilessly ridiculed by the other kids that he panicked and just threw the ring out the window.
Thrown out the window, just an immediate visceral reaction to social policing.
Right. It was his first core memory of recognizing a strong feminine side and immediately learning that the outside world considered it dangerous.
And it escalated from school bus teasing to something much more systemic. By the time he was 16, he is deeply embedded in this evangelical touring scene.
Yeah, it got much worse.
He recalls a specific incident where he watched his peers gather around a crew member to try and literally pray the gay away from him.
So traumatizing.
Caleb was standing there, watching adults and peers treat homosexuality as a literal spiritual sickness that required intervention. He described it as incredibly traumatizing because he was standing there thinking, okay, this is it. This is true.
When we talk about the mechanics of trauma, this is a prime example of cognitive dissonance. You have a teenager secretly wrestling with his own feelings, and his survival environment is explicitly telling him those feelings are a sickness.
You just go into a chronic fight-or-flight state.
Exactly. Your core identity conflicts with the environment you absolutely need to survive.
Which perfectly explains the coping mechanisms that followed. You don't just brush that off. You have to biologically override that cognitive dissonance.
Just to block it out.
Literally. For Caleb, he spent a decade burying his feelings with alcohol and suicidal thoughts. He admitted that anytime his mind would drift toward questioning his identity, he would intentionally push back with suicidal ideation just to stop the thought process dead in its tracks.
Which is just heartbreaking to hear.
In his 20s, alcohol became the primary tool to numb the internal conflict, essentially suppressing the part of the brain that would force him to reckon with his reality.
And this is where the mechanism of sobriety is so powerful. It wasn't until he made the decision to get sober that the dam broke.
Removing the chemical suppressant.
Exactly. When you remove that, the brain suddenly has to process a decade-long backlog of trauma and reality. Sobriety forced a direct confrontation. It was the catalyst for reconciling with his sexuality.
Which casts his entire body of work in a completely new light. He wrote 4 highly successful albums for Beartooth while carrying this.
It is devastating when you step back and look at it. Fans connected to those records because they were steeped in themes of depression, self-loathing, and hopelessness.
Yeah.
His entire discography was essentially a diary of a closeted man screaming for help. He was hiding his deepest truths in plain sight, setting his internal conflict to blast beats and breakdowns.
Well, we are going to get into the rebuilding of his life in a moment, but later in this deep dive, we'll talk about the shocking twist nobody saw coming, the private agony of the woman who stood by him through it all, and the fierce backlash she accidentally sparked.
It is the side of these public coming out stories that involves ambiguous loss, which is so rarely discussed with the empathy it deserves.
Let's focus on that collateral damage right now because we really cannot fully understand this story without looking at his wife's experience.
No, you really can't.
Just hours after Caleb posted his statement, Fleur Shomo released a deeply candid statement on her own Instagram. She posted a video of the two of them dancing together, and her words were an exercise in profound grief.
They really were.
She made it clear that while she will always love and protect Caleb, the past few months have been a very disorientating and hurtful time.
Yeah, she wrote that you can love and support your person through the hardest time in their life, whilst also being completely demolished and losing yourself at the same time.
Completely demolished.
That phrase hits so hard because it perfectly describes the psychological toll of carrying someone else's secret in isolation. For months, she couldn't talk to anyone about the fact that her 14-year marriage was ending.
Because it wasn't her story to tell.
Right. It is a very specific type of grief. She didn't lose a partner to a lack of love, but to a fundamental incompatibility that had been hidden from her.
And her strategy for survival was incredibly raw.
It was. She wrote about focusing on what she can control, taking it day by day, piece by small piece, bird by bird. She even mentioned trying to pet as many dogs as possible along the way just to find small pockets of joy.
It is a very grounded human response, but, the internet is rarely grounded.
Oh, definitely not.
The public reaction was instantly polarized. Many fans sent support, but the trolls surfaced immediately. People labeled him shomosexual.
Yeah.
Chris Franzak, the frontman of Attila, actually made a homophobic joke on social media using that phrase, though he later apologized.
Which, I mean, the damage is already done.
Exactly, but the backlash wasn't just directed at Caleb's sexuality, it was directed at the nature of the marriage itself. Over on Board Panda, a top commenter fiercely criticized Caleb, essentially accusing him of using Fleur as a beard for 15 years.
That's a heavy accusation.
They argued that he stole her youth and pointed out a double standard, saying if she had been the one to file for divorce and walk away immediately from a struggling partner, society would have painted her as the villain.
That reaction really encapsulates the anger that onlookers often feel on behalf of the spouse. They see the timeline, they see the pain, and they want someone to blame.
I hear the outpouring of support for Caleb, and I understand the survival instinct, but I have to push back here.
Okay, what are you thinking?
We can't just gloss over the fact that a woman lost 14 years of her life to a lie. If you're listening to this and feeling angry on his wife's behalf right now, you aren't alone. Isn't calling it liberation letting him off the hook for a massive betrayal of trust?
That is the exact friction that makes this so complicated. And to answer your question, no, calling it liberation doesn't let him off the hook, because two conflicting realities have to exist in the same space here.
How so?
Well, Caleb's liberation was a positive, necessary step for his literal survival. Based on his own accounts of suicidal ideation, he did what he had to do to stay alive.
Right.
But acknowledging that biological and psychological necessity does not erase the devastating relational grief. It does not negate the fact that Fleur's life was upended, or the profound pain of lost time.
So how do you even reconcile those two things?
You look at how Fleur herself reconciled it. She navigated that duality with incredible grace. She stated that nobody will know anything about their marriage like they do.
Yeah, that was a powerful line.
She recognized that their 14-year history of love, fun, and adventure was real. The love existed, even if the foundation was incompatible and the ending was agonizing.
She refused to let the tragic conclusion rewrite the genuine connection they shared for over a decade. Well, stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Because after a house is demolished, you have to look at what gets built on the new foundation.
And that rebuilding phase is where the cultural impact of this story really takes shape.
Exactly. Looking to the future, Caleb has made a vow to himself and his fans. He is going to stop softening his expression. The days of filtering himself to fit the scene are over.
Which is so liberating.
Beartooth's upcoming 6th album is dropping August 28th via Fearless Records, and the title says, "It All Pure Ecstasy."
I love that title.
He has promised it will be his most authentic work yet, expressing himself wholeheartedly and chasing who he is in the deepest part of his soul.
You can physically see that shift in the band's recent releases. The music video for their single Free sparked massive discussion because it featured Caleb in flashy outfits, heavy makeup, and a highly theatrical performance.
Yeah, totally different look.
It was a complete departure from the rigid, hypermasculine metalcore aesthetic we talked about earlier. It was the visual representation of him breaking out of that cage.
And the industry veterans are taking notice of how significant this is. David Draymond, the legendary frontman of Disturbed, came out with massive praise for Caleb and the Free music video.
That's a huge cosign.
It really is. Draymond compared Caleb's power, class, and grace to absolute rock and roll royalty. He specifically invoked the names of David Bowie and Freddie Mercury.
Wow.
Yeah, calling Caleb one of the most formidable young frontmen in rock today.
When you have an industry giant like Draymond comparing a modern metalcore singer to Bowie and Mercury artists who completely shattered gender norms and forced the mainstream to embrace queer aesthetics in heavy music, you are looking at a real cultural shift.
Definitely.
Caleb is transforming his legacy. He used to be the guy writing anthems for desperate survival. Now he's proving you don't have to be trapped by the persona you created when you were hurting. You can evolve, you can embrace pure ecstasy, and you can bring your audience along with you.
So, if you are listening to this, what is the real takeaway here? Next time you are at a concert, standing in a massive crowd, screaming the lyrics to your favorite angst-filled anthem, ask yourself what secret is the person on stage really screaming about?
That's a haunting thought.
We consume their pain as entertainment, as catharsis for our own struggles. But how many other artists out there are hiding their deepest, most agonizing truths in plain sight, just waiting for us to truly listen?
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncovered the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.